All around these demigods unfolds the city of angels. This is where I met the most peculiar people, out of time, refractory to any idea of order. I have always observed them as in procession at the slopes of the Acropolis of Dreams, a parade of enchanted and deeply free beings that go across a land where neither past nor future reside. Los Angeles shines in its own magic, which is timeless. It's a place that brushes the divinities, becoming a mythology of the possible. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. As a die-hard Tom Ford for Gucci fan, I would never dare utter the words successor. It was hard for me to even entertain the idea that someone could possibly surpass what he did for the famed fashion house. But I sense my allegiance has shifted. Alessandro Michele is the designer for our time. With each collection, I feel we're on some kind of precipice, like we're reaching the end of something. Like Alessandro is intensively gleaming at a crystal ball, whispering his premonitions. And this figurative language is appropriate, because Michele makes an exhausting effort to evoke mysticism in everything from his editorials to his collections. For example, the Tarot, where Tim Walker did the photography, love him, absolutely love him, or the homage to Bosch's Earthly Delights in the Spring-Summer 2018 campaign. Michele's Gucci is so many things, but above all, I would say that it represents decadence. And decadence is a word that I think we all know the feeling of instinctually, but we have never really believed in its power outside of the foggy, antiquated stories of Marie Antoinette or the Jazz Age or Japan's floating world. But let me tell you outright, we live in a decadent age. Decadence, by definition, means moral or cultural decline as characterized by excessive indulgence in pleasure or luxury. We live in a world of such luxury that we are hard-pressed to recognize our privileges. We look for reasons to be unhappy. We look for reasons to restrain ourselves in times where we have all the freedom in the world. We are a world of many freedoms of expression, convenience, and artistic spaces. And Michele, being the creative director of the most famous and most profitable brand possibly to ever exist aside from Chanel, knows this. He knows, maybe in some unconscious way, like destiny, that it is his job to champion the ethos of the world at this very moment. This show is also a special one because it marks Gucci's 100-year anniversary, as well as the first in-person show for the house since February 2020, when the world stopped. Los Angeles represents a return to the place he chose as the backdrop for his first campaign as creative director. A sentimental return to the pantheon that was portrayed to him by his mother as a dream factory. We'll get to her a little bit later. Since Michele's appointment to creative director, I have to admit I have not been disappointed or bored since. I feel like each collection satisfies a childlike hunger within me. The colors and the flamboyancy of it all just feels so rebellious and self-satisfying. Everything is bright and rich with velvets and brocades and satin métissé and sheer neon silks. It involves all of the senses. It's all so indulgent. And I remember his debut collection. I mean, in comparison to his collections now, it was like somebody had dimmed down the lights. Now every collection is like it's on MDMA. This collection, the pre-fall, I'm going to call it pre-fall 2022 collection, is Alessandro's best collection yet. And yes, it is even better than the Cruise 2018 show, and I'm here to convince you that that is true. Hollywood is, after all, a Greek temple populated by pagan divinities. Here, actors and actresses are acknowledged as heroes of the myth, hybrid creatures with the power to hold divine transcendence and mortal existence at the same time, both the imaginary and the real. They are the idols of a new contemporary cosmogony, embodying a persistence of the sacred. Aphrodite, Theseus, Pandora, and Medusa still live in Hollywood's Olympus, beyond reach and yet so human. The contents and meaning of this quote from Michele is something I really want to drive home in this video, and it is the grounds for why I consider this to be his best collection. From the garments to the styling to the venue to something as monumental yet accidental as the timing of when it was shown. The pre-fall 2022 collection represents modern civilization at its crux. A world where we embrace myth, mysticism, the unknown, the beauty of indulgence and release, and the decline that follows. I'm gonna be looking at this collection on my phone as I speak about it, so I'll admit that this collection is certainly more tame in its nerdy 60s typist dominatrix provocativeness, but that does not score it less points. The collection was observably filled with old Hollywood nostalgia, but mixed too with a certain wonderstruck Los Angeles persona, someone you would see walking down the street there. And I recognize these personas as somebody who had lived in Los Angeles for a little over 4 years. The party girl, the glamorous hippie, the feminine boy, the hipster, the Old West nostalgist, the modern punk, the canyon crawler, you name it. They're all very vivid people that you see that are mixed in this collection with the personas of old Hollywood. What I love too about this collection is the subtle and I guess not so surprising integration of fetish and sex toys, which is undoubtedly to observe Los Angeles as the home for the LGBTQ+ community. Vogue says, perhaps only in the Gucci-verse does a sex toy necklace, and let's not forget the life-size anal bead keychains, find a home next to the hyper-luxe velvet bow ties, flapper-style hats, and logoed leggings. Of course, that's the beauty of Gucci, and indeed Hollywood, where anything is possible. In addition to Vogue's take, I would say that the reason such things could be mixed together is not because it's just Gucci. That certainly is one thing, but because we live in an age of decadence, because our society allows that luxury of absurdity. Can you imagine anal beads as accessories 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago? They'd cause a riot. I don't think so. We have loosened the reins. And because we're not only tolerant, but accepting of everything and anything in cohesion. Los Angeles, cuttingly over New York, is often described as a fashion capital, but not necessarily for its chicness, but for its originality. The stylish Angelinos are not trying to look like anyone but themselves. As with New York, they say that everybody in New York is trying to look like people in Europe. In Los Angeles, it seems that the influence is from some kind of internal culture. There's a true originality in the way that they dress, even if it is absurd. Tim Gunn actually spoke about this some years ago. Alessandro, early in life, had wanted to be a costume designer, thanks to his mother, who was involved in the production of films. And he studied costume design in Rome. I mean, like, how dreamy is that? But then he decided to pursue fashion design and ready-to-wear. And it's clear, though, in every single one of his collections, there is this influence. Regularly, critics and the audience comments of how his models and the styling of their garments seem to assign each with a character or a role to play, someone to embody. Take example Sarah Mower on the 2018 Cruise collection. The vestiges of the ancient classical theme were apparent. Gilded wreaths, tiaras implanted with silver lyres, but then again, they were only a part of the extraordinary things Michele does to frame and individualize his cast of characters. Michele's mother worked in the production of films, and this deeply influenced him. And I think indeed we are all transfixed by playing a character. For example, our fascination and anticipation for Halloween or the Met Gala. It's a chance to indulge in an alternative side of ourselves without scrutiny. Often we hear ourselves say that we wish to be who we really are. Oh, I wish I could dress like this, or act like this, or do this. In Michele's Gucci, and in the Hollywood universe, we can. As one of the fashion magicians that dictate the trends that the masses follow, he is definitely telling us in this collection, today, you can be whoever the fuck you want. He imparts courage onto us. Each model walking down the runway is a mirror of ourselves and our potential for individuality in the time that we live in. I thought about the worship of beauty that my mother fed me, about the indefeasible gift of dreaming and the mythopoetic aura of cinema. This is why I chose Hollywood Blvd. Now, as I was writing the script for this video, I thought that I would be elaborating a lot more for much longer on the significance of this venue. But it turns out that the beauty of it is really quite simple, and we'll get to it in a second. Naturally, the show starts with Bjork echoing through the streets, and then the models depart from within the historic Chinese theater. They are all characters in a film. They're all personas, free to express their innermost desires and to be their true selves from behind a mask. Or maybe just the perennial cinephile residing in the swaddle of the entertainment industry. Also, to be candid here, I really just want to gawk over the design of this venue really quick. I mean, the fact that they have spotlights at the end of the street to simulate car headlights waiting at a red light, and that the models actually have to walk across the street as part of the show, like they're walking home to their apartment after leaving the cinema. I just love that. I mean, I also think about how they had to clean the Walk of Fame. I mean, the streets of LA are filthy. I mean, they can power wash that shit as much as they want, but I don't think that there could be a more appropriate venue for this collection than Hollywood, than the Walk of Fame. Aside from Alessandro talking about his mum and her influence and how Los Angeles is the city of dreams and the home of deities and legends, Hollywood is the home of decadence, superstition, and tragedy. The great Greek tragedy. If you've never lived in Los Angeles, or if you don't really care to know anything about it, or don't understand why people hold Los Angeles in such high regard in a very different way than they do other places, LA, Hollywood, has a very haunting but beguiling, just gorgeous glimmering presence to it. And I'm just gonna run a few things by you guys to tell you why someone like me, as well as many other people who actually live there, just can't seem to leave. There's something so spectacular about it. Think of all those who famously died at Chateau Marmont. All the tragic lives of crotch-bearing starlets and sirens laid bare for the covers of morally bankrupt magazines. Think of Helter Skelter. And also, side note, think about the fact that Michele bears an uncanny resemblance to a cult leader, as well as Jared Leto, his best friend. But think of cults. Think of grand theft, embezzlement, and drugs. Think of all of the haunted hotels, the Cecil, the Knickerbocker. Think of Hollywood as the seat for elite parties and the prodigal rich, and a somehow impeccably glamorous celebrity cemetery where people have picnics with swans. Think of Hollywood as the dystopic substitute for the real world. All of Hollywood is what we want the world to be, but as humans, we just cannot manifest it. We crumble under the weight of our ambition. Think of the damned legacy of Hollywood. I mean, if it isn't called the Acropolis by Michele, it's called the regular Sodom and Gomorrah. And I don't think I have to tell you what happened there in relation to our theme of decadence, do I? Hollywood, much like Mount Olympus, is a playpen for the gods to do or commit any act, and for their transgressions to be poeticized or set as a cautionary tale. It is in that magical place where you can be an art form, unbound and revered and immortal. For so many years, we have felt some kind of disconnection from Hollywood, like it's a dramatization of the real world, or a depiction of what could never happen there. But I feel that with this collection, Alessandro is speaking directly to us, telling us that the time for Hollywood and reality to converge is now. That we can embody those gods, the actresses and musicians, that the lines can now be blurred. We have the agency to forsake humanity in exchange for divinity. And it's our decision to employ decadence upon ourselves, to decide whether its fleeting beauty is worth its counterpart. destruction. The reason why such incomprehensibly beautiful things, such as this collection, shine so brightly is because their influence is limited, their time is limited. The most captivating woman in the world overdoses, the irresistible actor dies in a car crash, the famous artist faces insurmountable amounts of criticism, the hedonist nightclub gets shut down after 2 short years. All decadent periods end in tragedy, war or recession being 2 primary historical examples. Decadent people do not live very long. Gucci's Love Parade is a swan song for radical individualism, for the sanctity of ephemera. We need to embrace our time, a time of decadence, and all of the freedoms that it affords us for the short amount of time that we have them. I am certainly anticipating the House of Gucci movie that's coming out with Gaga, that is premiering, I believe, on the 24th. They said Thanksgiving, but it's like premiering the day before that, I guess. Ever since I first saw the promo for this movie, the part where Lady Gaga is going, Father, Son, and House of Gucci. I mean, I was hooked instantly. I wanted to see it right after I saw that promo. But I'm really excited. I hope the acting is good. I hope that the costume design is good. I mean, it better be for this movie. But this is my first fashion video. I hope you guys liked it. Let me know if I did a good job. If my input was of value. Please do not forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment and tell other people to leave comments and, you know, turn on the little bell for notifications. And I will see you guys next week. Goodbye.